The chairman of the review committee here. Let me introduce our other members. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yep, my name is Jeffrey Crane, Realtor representation.
And I'm Alex Coop. I'm a real estate appraiser and agent in the Cumberland County area.
And I'm a local real estate broker also, and a real estate educator. Again, welcome. So we have some opening comments.
Peter on Zoom.
And Peter, I'm sorry. You want? Yeah. All right. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear it. Thank you.
All right. So we have some opening remarks, and then we'll dive into the hearing. Again, welcome. The meeting of Cumberland County Board Assessment Review. The meeting will come to order at this time. So this is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have a right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all of the exhibits that are offered. Please notify the chairman if you're unable to hear or see. The board works from a prepared agenda that will be considering today the items in the following order. The tax abatement of 25 Pondview in Casco, the tax abatement for 400 Carsley Road in Harrison. Any person wishing to address the board may do so in accordance with the following procedures. Order of presentations. The board will initially confirm with the applicant that the assessor, the current assessed value of the property, and the requested abatement amount. The board will then open the public hearing and ask the applicant to present his or her case, followed by questions by the board members and questions by the assessor. The board will then ask the assessor to present his case, followed by questions by the board members and questions by the applicant. The board will then allow the member, any member to speak of the public on agenda items. The board will then close the public hearing and deliberate and make a decision on the tax abatement appeal. Following the decision on the appeal, towards the end of the meeting or at a subsequent meeting shortly thereafter, the board will prepare a written decision that will be mailed to the applicant within 10 days of the board vote. Evidence. The board may receive any oral or documentary evidence, but such evidence is restricted to the subject matter of the agenda item. The board shall exclude irrelevant or immaterial or unduly repetitious evidence. Decorum. Citizens shall refrain from interrupting other speakers. This meeting is being electronically recorded, and it is very difficult to hear what is being said when multiple people speak at the same time. Citizens shall avoid personalities and conduct themselves in a civil, courteous manner expected of all meeting participants. Questions. Speakers should address the questions through the chair, and speakers shall not attempt to engage in a debate with other meeting participants. Public comment. Persons wishing to address the board on the agenda item shall significantly sign in their desired speech by raising their hands. So they're going to signify by raising your hand and letting it be recognized by the chair and announced to that person. After being recognized to speak, the chair, such person shall, have their comments and be giving the first and last name. So please identify yourself, is what this is saying. So, any questions? Hopefully I went through that clear enough for you. All right, if none, let's move on to the first agenda items. Tax abatement appeal for 25 Pondview, Casco, and would that applicant like to address us? Yes. Yes, please.
I think our first order is to determine whether or not one is the right jurisdiction and timeliness, right?
Oh, okay, let me interrupt our proceedings. Has all the filings been, Jim, filed appropriately on time frame?
There is a memo within your file, within your packet, looking at that. You may want to ask the applicant their stance. I believe they have a letter in there. So it might be good for the committee to maybe take a five-minute pause and just read through that and then be ready for some questions for the applicant.
All right,
Sounds good.
sounds okay?
Yeah, that works.
Stand by.
Here.
Yes, sir.
This.
Right, so this is the document that Jim was referring to. So on our agenda, it talks about the background, when we received the denial letter, when he received the denial letter, or when it was written, 11/4,
Yeah.
when he's stating that he received the denial letter, and the timeframes associated with that.
So how many days off are we on that?
So the next page kind of walks through it. So within 60 days after notice of the decision from which the appeal has been taken, the applicant has 60 days from the date the notice is received to appeal the decision. So we're looking at a window of 60 days from when it's received. General terms, notice by first-class mail is deemed to be received within 3 days after mailing, excluding Sundays and legal holidays, so we're not including those. It was mailed on the 4th, so we would have expected that to have been received by the 7th, November 7th. Applicant stating he received it on the 12th, but from the 7th forward, 60 days would come out to January 6th, which is when it's post-stamped. The county's stating they received it on the 8th. It was filed on the 8th in the system. So looking at about 50 from the 7th to the 8th.
What do you think?
Looking at 60,
65
following
days.
along, Alex, and what you
Yeah,
want
I
me to-
am. What I'm looking at is, looking at this document sent to the county on the 6th of January. But I'm trying to see if there's any,
We go from 11/7 to 11/8 when it was documented, that's 62 days.
yeah.
The 12th to the 6th is 57 days. The 12th to the 8th is 59 days. But, just to get an idea.
Okay.
But, like,
Yeah.
Okay,
Peter, are you tracking with everything? We're talking,
we're trying to figure out how many days.
Yeah.
He had 60 days and
The
he's,
date was in the letter yesterday, or that they were saying that statute gives 3 days first class mail. And the point I would just make is that anyone who's mailed a letter in the last 3 years knows that 3 days from the state of Maine is unrealistic. So I would defer to the applicant.
Yeah.
Actually have a report from the Officer Inspector General too, dated June of 2024. staffing issues, it is delayed. And in fact, this week, if you watched News Center, Channel 6, they had a news report how, due to, again, staffing issues, mail is delayed sometimes for weeks, just sitting there in facilities. So I did receive it on the 12th, and going 60 days out from that, did submit it within those 60 days.
And I'm with Peter. I feel a reasonableness factor here, and I do feel the same way. Mail is not totally reliable, but I don't, where do you guys fall?
I'm okay jurisdiction-wise. I feel like the market conditions support his experience.
I concur. It seems reasonable to me.
So we accept?
So, yeah, I think we accept it.
You might want to take a motion and a vote.
Yep.
All right, all in favor to accept the applicant and to proceed?
Aye.
I second that. Seconding it?
Seconding? Yeah.
All in favor?
Robert's rules.
Sorry. It's unanimous. We'll move forward. That sounds okay with everybody?
Thank you, Ed. Let's move forward.
All right? I'm gonna go,
Floor is mine.
I'm gonna go back to you as the applicant.
Jurisdictionally, we're good. The floor is yours.
The floor is yours.
Proceed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. I know time is a finite resource, and you're all volunteers and doing this for the good of the county. So thank you for your time, and appreciate you hearing my case. My name is Jeff Messer. I'm the owner of Annabella Properties. It's a single-member LLC that owns the property in question. It's a seasonal camp on Thomas Pond and is part of the Thomas Pond Cottage condominiums. Used to be a resort years ago, and then they condoed it out. So each cottage is its own condo. So in accordance with Maine Law Title 36, Chapter 841, I must prove there is irregularity in this assessment. And I am hopeful to prove that tonight, and therefore requesting that an agreement be granted based on that irregularity. I'm also familiar with the three approaches to value real estate that's recognized by Maine law. I believe that sales comparison approach is the best approach in this case. And I'm going to make two arguments this evening, that there are no sales comps that will support the $422,000 valuation of this property. And then there's also no consistency in this condo association. So the most recent comp is 28 Pond View, which recently sold for $325,000. I also understand that Mr. Sutherland, representing the county, did not believe that this was a direct comp because my property is 40 feet closer to the water than 28 Pond View. But let's look at two properties that have sold within 2 months of each other. Granted, it's not as recent as 28 Pond View, but I wanted to look at 13 Pond View Way and 29 Pond View Way. So again, both in the same condo association. 13 sits up on the hill, and you can reference the map that you have in there. Let's go to the
Okay, I got it. So we're talking about
Yeah.
25 and 28?
and I can give you the lot numbers too. Let me show you the better of the two to reference the hill ones. That one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
What, excuse me, Mr. Messer, can you hold it up so I can see which one you're looking at?
You can come over here.
See that one? It should be in the packet.
He didn't get a packet.
I don't think I got a packet.
I'm happy to have you come.
I don't think I got a pack.
I got an extra, if this is the package.
Give you a packet, Bill. It's Exhibit 5.
Okay.
So 13 Pond View Way, on the map is 1 Tac 2, and 29 is 1 Tac 9. So 13 Pond View in 2020, so May of 2020, sold for $170,000. And then just 2 short months after that, 29 Pondview sold for $230,000. So it's a delta of $60,000. Again, in the same condo association, one sits on the water and one sits in the back up on the hill. So I throw that out there as there's a $60,000 differential between those two properties. Yet, Mr. Sutherland is suggesting that there's a $252,000 difference between my current valuation and a valuation of the property up on the hill. So the comps don't support it, is my point there. Is that if we take 4 years ago that there was a delta of 60,000, I don't think that delta has gone or varied that much to support the $252,000 differential that currently exists. I also want to point out that 13 Pondview Way, that sold 4 years ago for $170,000, is currently valued at $170,000. So it reflects no appreciation in the last 4 years. And we all know what real estate has done in COVID, and so again, it's highly irregular and doesn't make much sense.
Can you clarify, so you have 29 Pondview 1-9, what year did you indicate that sold?
That sold in 2020.
2020, for $239?
Nope, $230,000.
230.
And then that same year, 13 Pondview Way sold for $107,000. If you look at, generally, if you break out the different classes, if you will, of properties in this condo association, you have units up on the hill, which are 1-1 through 1-5, and then units that sit on the back or south of Pondview Way. That would be 1-11, 12, and 13, and then the units that sit north of Pondview Way or on the water side, 1-10, 9, 8, 7, and 6. There's roughly $116,000 delta between those properties. So as you go from Hill to south of Pondview Way, the land values increase by $116,000, and then if you jump across the street, they bump to $115,500. Again, comps don't support that, and I find it highly irregular to try to value the land using the distance from the water. So my property, 1-7, 25 Pondview Way, the land is valued at $346,500. This is the most valuable spot in the whole complex. But if I just happen to magically move the camp 3 doors northwest, so it's the same exact property, the same distance from the water, the same amenities, it's same size structure there, the land value drops by more than a third. It drops $115,500. And so this subject property, or the property that I'm talking about, is 31 Pondview Way, or 1-10.
What's that difference you just noted?
There is no difference.
The difference in valuation?
The valuation difference is $115,500.
Between parcel 1-7 and 1-10?
That is correct. And both sit directly on the waterfront, both have the same views, both have the same size cottage, they have the same amenities, everything. Again, another irregularity that makes 0 sense.
Is the positioning on this map accurate?
It is not. If you go to the other map, the hand-drawn one, that's a little bit more accurate.
Which one are you
Exhibit
referring
7.
to? This one?
Yeah, that one.
Okay, so on that map, what number are you referring to for this?
My property is 7, and I'm referring to item 10.
Would that be 10 on the tax map, which is this, or would it be 10 on this sheet, because they're non-numbered?
Looks like 7 and 11,
No.
Yeah.
right?
Is it number 11
No, it's 10.
on this map?
Yes, and it's 10 on the other one.
It's,
1-10.
well, 10 is...
Well, you're missing a property on the tax map, or that one. It's not accurate.
So,
Can I jump in and ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm looking at Exhibit 7 when I'm following the property. Is that the correct one? That I see 10 as a waterfront on that one. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's the one you're referring to as,
Yeah, because on Exhibit 5, you have the wrong property highlighted. That's actually a utility shed. That, you have the little arrow that says comp,
yep.
yep.
so I'm not certain what you meant by that. So anyways, I mean, you can go off the vision database if you want. So 31 Pondview Way is $115,000 less than, but it's an exact match to my property. So, I mean, we can keep going down that path, but what I suggest is just we use the data available. You know, these units haven't sold a ton. I went back and looked and every, I looked at when they traded for and what they traded for. And unfortunately, a lot of them have been held by the same people for a long time, so there's not a lot of recent data. But the data that we do have is the $325,000 one that sold across the street. I'm saying let's take that $60,000 delta, cut it in half because we're halfway between the water and the hill. So it's 30,000, tack it on to 325, and let's call it 355 as far as valuation for my property.
Have any questions?
Are these mostly rented units?
No, they're primarily owned by families and retirees that are used seasonally. Community, the water gets shut down in October and they turn it back on in like April, May. So folks usually, it's coming up to the weekend.
And do you have the 2020, like, you provided the MLS data for?
It's coming out of the vision database.
I don't recall seeing that in here. Do you have copies of those you can provide to the?
Yeah, I can share those with you if you want.
Awesome.
Which, are those, no, I'm sorry, you wanted the sales?
Yeah, the sales data.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, when you get done, we'd like to look at those too.
Certainly. See, you'd like to take a look at those.
I want to clarify too. So with this property that was, the sold property for 325, that's behind your property?
It's not behind, but it has full water views. Actually, sits southwest.
Okay. Is there, there's no obstructed views? Because I'm just looking at the map, the reason I ask is because I can see there's two houses in front. Okay.
Because if you're looking here,
Yep.
that is actually a utility shed.
Right.
It's the one that's.
112.
12,
Yeah. You can see how that's, just, you guys all on the same map? This one that says Thomas Pond at the top. Just in looking at it, it appears to set back like there would be some obstruction, it would look like. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, and I should give you some background on the condo association. So we own a 5-foot halo, if you will, around our properties. We can modify that as we wish. But everything else is common land, so I don't own any waterfront.
Yep.
Have access to a dock and like everyone else has the same access.
Yep.
You want to give me those back? I'll give you those back.
So,
Any other questions from the board? Do you have anything in addition?
No, nothing further to add. I can answer any more questions.
now we hear from the,
Okay. We'll let you go for right now.
Okay.
We'll give you another opportunity a little bit later.
Second.
Yes, sir?
thank you.
My last two things, you passed to me and I passed them back.
Oh,
Came back
yeah, you
in.
got them back. I'll
Yep.
probably take copies of those too. Are we able to get copies? Some of the copies?
That would be nice.
So we have them on file.
The two properties that sold, you're talking about the 170.
For the 2020, yeah, that's who you referred to.
Thank you.
Mr. Messer, you can stay.
We're gonna be coming back to you again. You'll have an opportunity to rebut, or to
Yeah,
talk.
we'll give you
once
another.
Yeah,
We'll give you another chance.
Stay in the hot seat for another
Right.
10 minutes.
stay comfortable.
So you are the assessor, correct?
No,
That would be me,
That be you? Okay. Well, you're next.
okay?
I'm Bill Dale. I'm a retired lawyer, and I work part-time in the assessor's office doing something else, but volunteered to sit in with Rob on this. Let me introduce everybody here.
All right.
At the end of the table here is Rob Sutherland, and he is the regional assessor. And in that capacity, is for Cumberland County doing the assessing work for 6 towns, one of which is Casco. So he is technically the assessor for the town of Casco.
That is correct.
Seated to my left is Marge Schmucky.
Sandra Schmucky.
Sandra Schmucky. With a name like Schmucky, you have to be good, right? In any event, here's the assessor's case. Most important, that the burden of proof in these abatement cases is always on the property owner. And if you're not
Right.
sure which side has presented the better case, the rule in Maine, under decisions of the Maine Supreme Court, is that the assessment holds. We have presented a packet of written materials that we're going to go through, but first I'd like to ask Mr. Sutherland if he would identify his educational background and training for this job.
Sure. So, as Bill stated, I'm the Director of Regional Assessing. I've been in this position for just shy of 2 years. I've been with this department in varying capacities, most previously as the Assistant Assessor, which is functionally the deputyship in our department since 2018. Prior to that, I worked for O'Donnell and Associates. They're a revaluation and appraisal firm out of New Gloucester. And before that, I was an architect. I went to the New Jersey Institute of Technology for architecture. I hold a Bachelor of Architecture degree as well as an MBA. I think that covers most of it.
What specific courses or training have you gotten as an assessor here in Maine?
Sure. So I am a certified Maine assessor, level 4, which is the highest certification in the state. In the process of attaining that, I have taken many courses through the International Association of Assessing Officers, including obtaining a designation of mass appraisal specialist. So essentially, it's a marker from the international organization of expertise in the appraisal of mass property.
Now, Mr. Sutherland, oops. Wait just a second here. Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Sutherland, when you first got the abatement request from Mr. Messer, what did you do to evaluate his claim?
Certainly. So we took a look at the schedule assignments for both his property and the surrounding parcels, both within the condominium association and surrounding Thomas Pond. On review, those schedule assignments were, in my opinion, equitably and appropriately assigned, as done by Vision Government Solutions and in working in conjunction with our office. I took a look at a number of Mr. Messer's claims, including he had some concerns about the apportionment of land acreage and some other questions, which I've addressed in my response letter to Mr. Messer from back in November. But we took a look at the properties that both sold on Thomas Pond and the assignment of the schedules as a result of those sales, and found that they were appropriate. And so, in the preparation of that information, we did prepare a number of sales ratio studies, both of properties that are proximate to the subject and also condominiums within the town of Casco.
Mr. Sutherland, let me
Yes.
stop you right there. You're looking at some exhibits, you're getting ahead of the rest of us here.
Certainly.
Take a look at exhibits 9 and 10 in your packet. Everybody should have copies of those.
So,
A little bit of colored print.
yes. So.
What is Exhibit 9?
So Exhibit 9 is it is a sale ratio study of property across Casco within the sale period under consideration for the revaluation that are condominium units. So on average, those units are assessed for 87 to 88% of market value. In Exhibit 10, these are properties, including lakefront property, proximate to the subject. And as you can see, the sale ratio study of assessment to sale price of qualified arm's length transactions is 98.3%.
Yeah, and what conclusion do you draw from that 98%?
That our assessment system in the area proximate to the subject is behaving appropriately and is statistically sound.
And again, back on Exhibit 9, what conclusion do you draw from that 87%
Sure.
ratio?
Even though it's only 3 sales, so it's probably not as comprehensive as we would have hoped, it is certainly an indication that, if anything, our assessment on condominium units is conservative.
Oh, okay. Mr. Messer made a point in his written materials and in his oral presentation tonight that how can it be, when you look at Exhibit 5, everybody, this one here, oh, look, Thomas Pond and the Blue Lake. First of all, he suggested that the structure labeled comp as 1-13 is actually a utility shed and not a dwelling unit, but the one next to that labeled as 1-12, that's the sale property.
Okay.
You with me, Mr. Sutherland?
Yes.
Okay. How can it be, what is your rejoinder to Mr. Messer's question, given the little bit of distance between those, and yes, 112 is to the rear and 17 is in front, how can that account for the difference in, but $100,000 in their valuation?
Sure. So similar differentiations are made for plenty of properties that are either on the waterfront or, let's say, one lot back or across the street. I think as Bill would often say, we draw lines all the time, certainly within the law. And we think that the market certainly supports that for fee property, and it would support it in this case.
What in fact is the difference? Is there a line drawn here, and what's the story on that?
So the assignments of the schedules of the properties that are along the water, at least the ones that we've identified, I know Mr. Messer contends that Lot 10 is a so-called waterfront piece as opposed to the ones that are aligned on the back. But our understanding is that the condominium units that are aligned along the shore are assigned a schedule that is consistent among the units that are along the water, and then those that are one step back are assigned on a somewhat more conservative schedule.
When you talk about different schedules, are you saying that you've looked at property sales and properties along the water valued at such and such, and properties one lot back off the water are assessed at a different level?
Generally, yes, and I think, maybe Sandra can go into that perhaps a little more.
Yes, it's accurate. When you are,
Excuse me, let me stop. Sandra Schmucke is from the Vision Appraisal Company, and she's sort of the overlord of this, so go ahead, please, Sandra.
the location along the water where there's nothing, no buildings between the subject and the waterfront gives them a superior or a more desirable location within this condominium complex versus across the street. They can still see the water, but the water view is blocked by other structures in front of it. It's not an unobstructed view.
Excuse me,
And
Sam, let me just point here in Exhibit 5, everybody. So the little square that's supposed to be the comp sale of 1-12 is to the rear,
Yes.
and 1-7, the subject property, you're saying the 1-12 has a slightly impaired water view?
That's accurate. There's two buildings between it and the water. Yes, they can still see the water, but it's partially obstructed.
Okay. And is it your position that there were comp sales around Casco that supported this provision?
Yes, so when we look at a lot of the other waterfront ponds that are within Casco, they're definitely along the waterfront. It's always more desirable location versus the people who are just one back. They can still see the water, but they don't have the easy access to the water. And again, the view is superior when you have nothing between you and the waterfront.
How long have you been doing these sales analysis?
I've been working since October 1998 in this, and I've been doing the sales analysis work probably from 2002 forward.
Okay. Are you comfortable, despite what Mr. Messer said about the only being whatever 30 feet between Unit 1-7 and 1-12 here on this Exhibit 5? There's a $100,000 difference in valuation. You comfortable with that?
Yes.
How so?
And the reason why is you can step out front on Unit 1-7, and there's nothing between you and the waterfront.
I disagree.
Yes, there may be occasionally be the dock there, that people may be utilizing the dock.
You'll have a chance to rebut.
And that is probably available to other people also, but again, the view when you look out the window in the morning with your coffee is still the superior, and the location is, again, you're just closer to the water, it's easier for you to get into that water. And what we found is that's what people are willing to pay the premium throughout the town of Casco along the waterfront.
From your comments, may I assume that the sort of holy grail in assessment is what sales occur in the marketplace? What the marketplace thinks about these things?
Yes.
And is it your testimony that the marketplace thinks, whether it's illogical, as Mr. Messer would say, there be a $100,000 difference, you're saying the sales in Casco support that?
Yes.
Even though that might be illogical, you're saying the holy grail is the marketplace, and the marketplace makes that distinction.
Yes. When we look at all the sales that happened during the time period.
Can you explain to me why I driving my car at 56 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone Is that more dangerous than I'm going 55? Or is it just to draw a line there?
Just to draw that line.
I guess if you have to draw the line somewhere.
And in this case, you're saying market sales around Casco, and not the neighboring towns, but the town of Casco, support having a different land schedule for these units that are one unit off the water as opposed to the ones that are on.
That's
It
correct.
wouldn't be a land schedule, it'd be like a view schedule because it's not owned land, right?
Well, these are condo units, and Mr. Messer and the others have a sort of exclusive right on their unit, but as he said, no, they don't own them, they're all part of the condo. They're all condo association. Were these Sonny's lots, is that what this was? Is there a woman named Sonny that owned all these? Okay. Okay. Mr. Sutherland, let me go back to you and finish up these exhibits, and I think we'll be pretty close to being done here. So you gave your decision to Mr. Messer, and that's your Exhibit 2?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to walk right through these, board members. Now, the appeal that's in front of the board tonight is Exhibit 3, is that correct?
That is correct.
And on Exhibit 3, if everybody looks in the middle of the page, the assessed value currently is $422, and Mr. Messer thinks the correct answer is $325.
I just altered that tonight.
Well, wait, a minute. I don't think you get to just alter it tonight.
Okay.
Well, that's why I'm going over it. The appeal that's in front of us is $422, and you say it's worth $325.
He stated in, previously it was 355.
Correct.
So he upped it to, by 30,000 verbally here tonight.
After I saw a sale and did more research.
Oh, you're saying that your opinion value is not $325, but it's $30,000 more than that?
I've now said that 3 times, yes.
Tonight. Yeah.
Okay. So you're less than $100,000 apart then?
Compared to the 422.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Now, Mr. Sutherland, Exhibit 4A in the packet. That is Mr. Messer's property?
That is correct. Yes.
And everybody can look at this, and
Looking at the town card, and the subject property?
yes,
Yeah, this one right here.
Exhibit 4A, the sticker, yep. Down at the bottom of this exhibit, Mr. Sutherland, is the calculation for the land value, right?
That's correct, yes.
And if you look at the very last line, real skinny going along the bottom of the page, what are these adjustments here? Site index, condition, neighborhood adjustment? Can you explain to the board what those numbers refer to?
Sure. So site index and neighborhood are the two land schedules are land schedule assignments that we can apply to a land parcel, or in the case of condominium, a land allocation.
So that might be why your property is worth more than mine,
Correct.
vice versa.
So, just for reference, so Mr. Messer's property and his comparable 28 Pondview Way, that's Exhibit 4B.
4A is Mr. Messer's property, and 4B is the one he's referred to as a comp.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Sutherland.
Well, I want to pull up 4B because I want to look side by side because I'm having a hard time reading the differences and all these town cards thrown in front of me at once and figuring out these differences. So I'm glad we're going over this.
Yep.
All right, I got 4B up.
So
Okay.
4A and then 4B. So 4A is Mr. Messer's, Mr. Sutherland?
Yes.
And
And
4B on that map is where is 113, which is that small little.
No,
it is, yeah, so,
I have 4B as 113.
right, so clearer representation would probably, at least if I understand properly from Mr.
I get it.
Messer, is sheet
Yes.
5.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Sheet 6, yep.
So, Mr. Sutherland, back to 4B,
Yes.
the alleged comp, go ahead.
Okay, so both are on the same site index. That is the Thomas Pond Area Site Index.
And that's a little category down here at the bottom of the page, right?
Yep, so that is site index M is what that is for. So your size adjustment, it is mislabeled. That's what's known as an influence factor. It's an issue with the way our property cards are printing out, so I do apologize for that. But that is one factor that's multiplied by the unit price. The other one is the neighborhood adjustment. So for the comparable property, it's a neighborhood 50, so that is a neighborhood of 1, versus the subject property, Mr. Messer's property, that's in the Thomas Pond Access schedule. So his property is assigned a schedule for properties that have access to Thomas Pond. There's a neighborhood adjustment of 3. To recognize the fact that these properties are closely situated to one another, and they are both also affected by similar conditions, there's a condition factor, which is a separate multiplier applied to the comparable property, that's again Exhibit 4B, to bring their property closer to what a property would be like in the situation of Mr. Messer's property.
So, Mr. Sutherland, if we've got two properties, look, on the face of them, look pretty similar, but one somehow has a better layout for the curtilage around the building, one has a better view of the water, whatnot, that gets adjusted by these multipliers?
Yes, that's accounted for.
And in this case, when we look at 4A, which is Mr. Messer's property, and then you look at 4B, which is the comp across the street, I see a big difference. On the condition factor for Mr. Messer's, it's 1.0, but for the comp, it's 2.0.
Correct.
And then the neighborhood adjustment, Mr. Messer's is 3.0, and the one across the street is 1.0.
That is correct.
What's the difference there? What accounts for that?
Essentially, this is a way of accounting for, because we can't apply a partial neighborhood schedule to one property versus another, condition factor was applied to bring them in line with one another to reflect the relationship between the two parcels. So typically speaking, in the case of a fee property that's owned on the waterfront, we have a further separate schedule that Mr. Messer's property has not been assigned, which would be Thomas Pond. That is a significantly higher adjustment. So he's not assessed as a waterfront parcel. He's assessed as a parcel that has waterfront access. And to bring his parcel, or to bring the parcels that are somewhat behind his parcel, or I should say condominium unit, in line with his, a condition factor is applied to bring them closer together to make that relationship reasonable and proportional one.
Thomas Pond, the only body of water in Casco?
No, certainly not.
Lots of other, ponds, lakes, rivers, what?
Certainly, including Sebago Lake, yeah.
And this business of adjusting these unit prices by condition factors and neighborhood adjustments, is that a process that you've used at the other waterfront properties around Casco?
Certainly.
And is it your opinion that is the best way to handle a mass appraisal to end up getting a number for a specific property?
I do. It would be the only viable way of doing it, and Sandra may be able to provide more detail there, but
It's-
that is how it's,
But this is what you've done across the entire town of Casco for waterfront properties?
Yes.
Sebago Lake or Thomas Pond or whatever?
yes.
Okay, those exhibits, 4A and B, and Exhibit 5, we've all looked at before. This is has the blue lake on top, says Thomas Pond, and Mr. Sutherland, Mr. Messer said that the little building shown in yellow that's labeled comp is not actually a building, is not actually a house, but 1-12 is,
Right.
right?
That is what he's saying, yes.
Yeah. So is it your testimony that in effect the different zoning parcels for valuation purpose run right down that little street that's shown by the dashed lines?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I gather from Sandra Schmucky's testimony that there are different neighborhood values for assessment
Yes,
purposes, and the line between the two happens to run right down that
That
little
is
street.
correct. Yes, that's correct.
And which is Mr. Messer's whole point. He's here that he thinks his unit 1-7 and 1-12 are essentially the same, but they're assessed roughly $100,000 different. And you're saying that's because,
The market bears that out.
do you have this situation with front lots and second-level lots across Casco?
Yes.
And do you use this same mechanism to assess those?
We do, although it's more aggressive. It would essentially assess the properties that are closer to the water much more aggressively compared to the properties that are one back.
Okay. Looked at, and Exhibit 7, everybody, is this diagram. I think we've got the comp sale a little more accurately identified in this one, Mr. Sutherland.
Yes.
So number 1 is Mr. Messer's property, and number 13 is the comp sale.
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. Now, what are exhibits 8A and 8B, Mr.?
These are maps of the, so,
Let everybody catch up there.
yes, sir.
Okay.
So
What's 8A?
So 8A is it is a map diagram of the assignment of neighborhood and site index. So those are the two land schedules I referred to earlier.
Okay, and on the two diagrams on 8A, Mr. Mess's property is circled in blue.
That's correct.
All right. And then the little purple ones across Pondview Way, one of those is the comp sale that he refers to.
Correct. Yep, on the neighborhood map, that's correct.
All right, then Exhibit 8B, what is that, Mr. Sutherland?
So that is a map of the assigned condition factors. So as I identified on exhibits 4A and B, the property cards, one way of interpolating the gradient of value moving back from waterfront was captured through the assignment of condition factor.
Okay. We've looked at Exhibits 9 and 10. And then what are Exhibits 11A through F? These look like Town of Casco assessment record cards. What are
Correct. So yeah, these are the property cards for the remaining units down by the water.
Okay, and again, on Exhibit 11A, if you look at the band that runs across the bottom of the page, we've got those same adjustments again, site index, condition factor, neighborhood adjustment. You got those?
Yep. And
And that is shown on all of these, we won't go through them all, but 11A through, whatever it is, H or G? F, I guess, the last one.
yep.
So you've used that same methodology for all of these neighborhood properties?
That is correct.
Right. And you've used that same methodology across the town of Casco?
That is correct.
How about one last line of inquiry here, Mr. Sutherland? If you go back to one of these maps here. Go back to Exhibit 5, everybody, this one. And off to the right-hand side, there's a great big parcel, not labeled separately on this map. You see that one there? And what's the story with that property?
So that is a property owned in fee. That is it's a parcel with a bunkhouse situated somewhat close to the water. Most of it is in resource protection and wetland. There is a right-of-way that crosses across that parcel.
So even though it looks like it's a great big, much bigger lot area-wise than Mr. Messer's, it may not have the same utility?
Correct. There is no direct access to the road. It is owned by an owner of an abutting piece, so currently they have access, but market value would not reflect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for
Very good.
diving into that.
Questions from the board?
You were saying that this, on Exhibit 7, 7, 8, 9, and 10,
Exhibit 7?
7, 8, 9, and 10 are along the water, right?
Yes.
So Exhibit 11D is parcel 1/9, which would be exhibit, or map ID 15/1/9.
Yes. Well,
Okay, no, I'm sorry, let's look at the land value for Exhibit 11D,
11D.
Okay.
owned by Michael Edgar, 7 Dunn Estate, Scarborough, Maine,
What's the lot number?
1/10.
Yep.
And that's the Eggers?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, does that site value read 231,000?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the land, yeah.
And could that be considered a more superior unit at the end, more privacy?
I suppose so or not.
Possible.
Yeah.
It's not definite, but it's possible. And I don't think that your increase in the land valuation carries across everything on that side with that calculation that you described on one side of the line or the other.
Yeah, 10, 11, and 12
I
are
think
all-
that the mass appraisal may have missed, or it's not, I don't know, it's not. 10 seems to not add up to those other high land values of 7, 8, and where's 9? 9's
Well-
346.
10 would be across the way. Well,
According to this map, it's not across the way. Exhibit 7.
You say, what do you mean by across the way?
I mean that it's on the same side of the road as the subject.
To the extent we have two different assessing schedules, they sort of fall along the middle of the road. And what you're saying is, number 10 is on the same side as Mr. Mester's.
Closest to the water.
Yeah, it's close to the water, as is Mr. Messer's. Why is its land scheduled less than Mr. Messer's? Why is it like back here?
Right.
And Mr. Sutherland, what's the answer to that question?
well, at least the way the map and lot schedules are assigned, map and lots are assigned, excuse me, compared to the map, as far as we understand in the assessor's office, is that parcel is across the way, and so, yeah, it would be on a schedule that is not the same as the parcels that are aligned along the waterfront.
Screwed up.
Can you hold that and we'll get to you? Yep.
You think it's a mistake, is what you're saying? A little bit nicer way? It's a mistake.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you talk about front lots versus back lots in your analysis, are you primarily comparing that to camps that are single family, they own the property? So you have a waterfront owned parcel and then a back parcel, you know, the bunkhouse lot. And are trying to apply that to a condo association?
Yeah, it's not clear because their town assessor card just talks about location, I don't know, land adjustment, and then they've kind of mixed it in with the site index and neighborhood to kind of make it all come out to a value. But it is a bit, the terminology does get a little mixed up. And it's different than owning a lot and having a unit.
Yeah.
So, I think that typically with landline valuations, there could be, a 40% difference and maybe larger lots on different bodies of water maybe, but for a view adjustment for one lot behind, I do think it's a little high. I would consider it a view adjustment. That's my opinion.
I mean, there's other factors too. If you're a road behind, you gotta cross that road and access the water differently than if you're right on the water.
Totally.
Or shepherding your little kids back
Right.
and forth over a road makes a difference.
But. Yeah.
The units on the backside also have access to that waterfront dock, is that correct?
Yeah, it's all
Yep.
equitable. Yep.
I would say so.
Understanding. Any other questions on that?
Any other questions?
Parcel,
Go ahead.
it's the view.
I think, I agree with you, it is at least partially that, okay, the view, but I think there's also access for that particular property owner to cross the road, to lug their stuff down to the water, to do whatever, okay? There is a distance there that I can understand that part also. So I think there's a couple things there. My opinion.
I'm not suggesting there shouldn't be a factor, I'm just wondering if over $100,000 on the other end of it is the number.
Well, we're down to about 67,300 now. Okay? Is that realistic for that? And
If I might put that in context, there's
Yes.
a fee property across the pond on Watkins Shores Road. The property in front, on the waterfront, sold for $825,000, and the one directly behind it sold for $510,000. Granted, there's improvements, so it may not be directly comparable, but our land assessments between the two differ over $300,000.
That's owned waterfront, I have no waterfront, I don't own any waterfront.
Right, but we're saying proportionally, it would be much more if we considered it waterfront, which we don't. We consider it access.
It's apples and oranges, you can't compare, the comps don't hold up.
Yep.
What were the similar lot sizes, similar square footage, similar year built? These two sales you're referencing?
Well, I provided those just to give an idea, since he wanted to know if we were considering this the same way as a fee property on one side of the road versus the other, and the answer to that is no.
But you are saying that this differential in land schedules is what's responsible for Mr. Messer's being
That is correct.
roughly $100,000 more than the quote comp behind it.
Yes.
And that system, like it or not, you have used throughout the town of Casco.
Correct.
Including the sample you just gave of the 800,000 versus 500,000.
He has an opportunity.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions to the assessor before we go back for rebuttal?
I got one question. Exhibit
Okay.
10, all these 17 sales, what is are they classified as seasonal, condo, single family, waterfront, water view, water access?
Which exhibit are you?
10.
Oh, that, yeah, okay.
Sure. So this is all classes of property, but if you look on the right, it is broken out by category, and so there is a summary statistic for each category. So we do have lakefront property as well. I have 3 sales in the area.
Now, walk us through that.
So there's 3 sales that are lakefront, is that what you're saying?
Yes. So there'll be Outer Green Island, 37 Letitia Lane, and 142 Lakewood Road that are proximate to the subject, that are qualified sales.
Well, you said Lakewood, and what's the other one?
37 Letitia Lane and Outer Green Island.
Those 3 right in a row.
Yeah.
Well, those certainly I wouldn't consider those comparable because they're around $1 million. And both Lakewood comps are between 3 and 385. The total.
I'm referring to the 3 under SFR LF MDL1. Those are the waterfront properties. So it would just be the one on Lakewood, 142 Lakewood.
And the point is that your assessment with regard to the actual sale price, you were at 109%.
On that one, and then, it's a sales study, so it's a statistical aggregate. So some will be above and some will be below, but on
Letitia
average.
Lane was 102%. Your assessment in Lakewood was 80% of the 2 million.
Yes.
And that says what for our case here tonight?
At the very least, the properties in that area are assessed in a manner which is uniform according to the requirements and standards of our profession, and also the sales ratio study is within conformity of market value.
But the only condo sale is 23 Condo Ridge Road number.
Right, yeah, there were only 3 condo sales throughout the town of Casco within the sales consideration period.
Wow. Yeah, that does make it tougher for everybody when the limited
Yes.
sales, but these old motel cabin conversions into condo units are becoming more and more of a popular.
You
Play.
can't leave anything alone. You gotta fix it and make it better. Well, so
Or make it worse.
oh, yeah, yeah, but nobody can just be satisfied. We gotta make it fancier or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you if you operate all these cabins, you want to get rid of them, condoing's not a bad way to move on from it, but.
Yeah, people aren't like I Love Lucy staying in these little cabins overnight. People want to own them now.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. President, I think we have gone through all of your exhibits here.
Any further question? We'll go back to you, sir.
So, Mr. Sutherland obviously has been doing this a long time and has studied for this and has got all the degrees, but he's human and messed up. Obviously, Exhibit 11D does sit on the water. It has unobstructed water views. It's the same footprint as my camp, and it's valued $120,000 less. So I'm not sure, again, it's an irregularity. I think I've proven that time and time again in our discussion tonight. Vision is trying to paint the entire town of Casco with a broad brush with a mass appraisal, but this is a very unique situation that I don't think you can find a comp. You have to look inside the community, and that's what I've done tonight, is try to find what the difference was between back and front, between, across the road. And it's not a highway. It's really a gravel patch where the grass doesn't grow, and there's no car traffic or anything like that. So is that really worth $115,000 for 40 feet? You're talking about lugging stuff down to the water. It's feet we're talking about. It's not an issue or a nuisance. So I think we really need to look at this specifically as a condo association and see what really makes sense. I'm not trying to say that a front lot is the same as a back lot. Yeah, there's a difference in, I see the desirability of having unobstructed views, but it's not worth $100,000. There. So I set out to prove irregularity. There's definitely some irregularities in the data. The comps don't support it. And I'll leave it there.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman and board members, if we're all sitting in my living room having a beer talking about this, you might say, gosh, what is the difference between the lot up front, Mr. Messers, and the lot in back, the comp sale? And maybe you're sitting around the table having a beer, we think it's not that much different. But the rule here is, under Maine law, you have to treat all the properties in Casco in like categories in the same fashion. I think the testimony here has been, whether we sort of viscerally would agree to it or not, the market data is that the marketplace pays quite a bit more for that front lot, whether it's lugging all the kids and their toys and rafts down to the water as opposed to just walking a little bit out front of the house, whatever. The marketplace, which is the holy grail here, the marketplace says, according to Sandra and Rob, the marketplace says, yep, those front properties are worth more. Is it silly that they're worth $100,000 more? Maybe.
They're not. They're worth $60,000 more. That's what I've shown you. In that community, the comps support a $60,000 difference between the hill and the waterfront. Nothing more.
Yeah, with all due respect, we think the data from around the town, which is the test here, supports the current assessment. Again, might be silly, we're having a beer, we might think, what, are you kidding me? But the rule here is, what are the other actual sales in the marketplace? Because what you and I think may be of value is not necessarily what the marketplace thinks. And that's the key here, is what's the marketplace say? And Sandra says, we've done the studies, and the studies show, like it or not, crazy or not, the closer to the water, it's quite a bit more expensive than being one lot back.
The state also says if there are irregularities, then you can offer a abatement. That's what the abatement process is all about. You painted it with a broad brush, now it's time to correct and focus around the lines.
Well, I guess I have a question on the irregularities. You based that on a couple of sales there, okay? Your data is based on strictly that amount of data.
Correct.
I look over here, and I'm looking at the assessor and vision of the entire town data, okay? I just have a hard time making that an even swap, that we've got a couple comps right there, and we're making some assumptions on those also, besides the entire town data that is on this side of the table. I'm just having a hard time agreeing
No, I hear
on
you,
that,
but-
that's all.
But if you also look, this is an incredibly unique situation. There's no owned waterfront. I can't control the waterfront in front of me, so I think it throws out the majority of what Vision is talking about. It's a condo with a water view compared to another condo next to me, 40 feet away, that has a pretty darn good view.
You would agree, though, that it's a pretty good, darn good view, not as good of a view as yours? Yeah.
Yes, and that's where I think we gotta figure out what's that difference.
Yep.
I think it's 30,000, I don't think it's 115,000.
Yep.
That vision makes sense.
So the 115, did you calculate 97? Where's the 115? It was like 325 versus 422.
Well, I calculated, they changed to 355 versus 422.3 is 67,300 is the difference in the assessed value. Originally, we were talking about 97,300 as a difference. Again, all very subjective, okay?
Yeah.
You know, I go back to market value, and what you were talking about earlier, is, you know, I know in my 40 years' experience, people will pay more money to be closer to the water, all right? Now we get down to how much that is. And I think from Mr. Deal, you know, you can argue about that, but where do you land? Well, you've got to go back to as much data as you can find, even though it's maybe not precise, it's all we got to use. And I know that Mr. Sutherland would love to have, you know, 4 or 5 condos that are sold just like this, and we would have even better data. So that's where I'm kind of wrestling with things a little bit, and I hear you, I really do, on where you are, and I, you know, I have an awful lot of data over here, so.
Also, I'm looking
If you
at,
wanna pay 422, I'll sell it to you today.
could have buyers.
I'm not
So,
buying today, but,
so just, I also, the 2 examples that you provided for 13 Pondview Way, which was set back a bit,
Up on the hill, yeah.
up on the hill, versus 29 Pondview, which was essentially on the wires closer to the water. I think it's a comparable, is it the one next to yours?
Yes.
I think that was
There's a couple,
1-9.
it's like a couple of them,
Yeah,
yes.
so it's, the price difference between those two, 170 and 230,
Correct.
if you proportionately, if you advance that, the market's increasing in value over time, but proportionately, if you increase that over time, you would essentially come out, I think the difference between the two is about 77%, whereas the difference here between these 2 properties that we're thinking, the one that sold for 325 versus your property, that's 74% of the value. There's a difference there. So proportionately, the difference has grown.
You're talking about different layers, so if you have hill across the road on the water, the way that Casco's done it, they've done it like a 3-step process.
Yep.
And so that's why I split the difference, 60 and called it 30, but I
Okay.
understand
Yep.
depreciation. And the town didn't tackle the other issue I brought up, that they haven't appreciated 13 They've left the valuation what it traded for.
Right.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah, yep.
So again, irregularity.
any other questions?
I would just add, you know, talking about you all sitting around my dining room table having a beer talking about. If my wife came in the room and said that she would pay $100,000 more for the one closer to the water than the one back, we might all say to ourselves, oh, it's nuts, it's not big about it. But she would say that, and what we're saying is, that's what the marketplace says. It's not just my wife, it's the marketplace says. Is it silly, is it ridiculous that there's that much difference in value for 50 feet and a slightly restricted view versus a completely open view? Maybe, but it's what my wife would do, it's what the marketplace would do, and that's what we're saying. Even though it seems silly.
Well, yeah, so. You're alluding to it's a little bit silly.
It is, except
So,
that's what the marketplace, if the marketplace is silly, so be it.
Right.
And I think you make a pretty good argument, Alex, that that marketplace may be silly, my wife may be silly on that, but don't tell her I said that. This is being recorded.
This is being recorded.
I won't, so from now, at this point, Jim, one of us motions one way or the other.
So
I think we have a dialogue regarding it. So
right
we
now,
close the conversation and question.
if there's not any other questions,
Right.
then I will close the public hearing, and then we can now talk about any other questions in discussion right
Right,
now.
yeah.
Okay?
Yep, I feel like you know, with that inconsistency at the end, the town system is not perfect, and where these condos are unique, I don't feel like, you know, I'm not even sure that the market value of one of those when on the market would be about 400,000. I feel like it's overvalued for sure. And I feel like the applicant is giving a fair solution to the abatement at a reasonable number.
So in summary, what you're saying is you're kind of leaning towards
I'm leaning
the
towards-
355?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards granting his abatement motion, his abatement. At his proposed number, the difference is 67.5, 67.3.
Okay, yep.
I mean, he's shown the market data for, the only sale in that association is in the threes. And in my, you know, and what I've seen out there for similar old, you know, cottage places in Pine Point and whatnot and other areas, you know, they're so small units that, you know, this different location adjustment is proportionally high, very high, I feel, and isn't consistent with the one on the end.
Yeah, from my perspective, I see, from a buyer perspective and looking at the marketplace, people will pay a premium for being on the water and having direct access. I know it's not owned, the beach isn't owned by, it's a condo association, so everyone has the same similar rights, it's a shared beach. But having to have an obstructed view and having to get access by walking down between two other buildings to get access to that beach is a significant enough difference that I could support there being a fairly substantial difference in price, from my perspective.
Okay. Yes. From our studio participant on the board?
I mean, I think the applicant made a good point, is that, you know, when you do a townwide valuation, you use the data, you use the sales data, you use the waterfront sales, the one lot back sales, but there's factors in there that get included, like ownership, and this association doesn't have ownership, and this is when you have to come in and fine-tune valuation for the outliers, and this is clearly an outlier. This is a unique property. It does have water use, but the water frontage is actually owned by the association. I think some of the factors and the statistics the town will be using, and Vision Appraisal is using, don't account for that. And this is where you do have to come in and fine-tune the numbers. And so I agree with the applicant based on the comparable sale, which is across the street, and the argument that they all have the same amenities, the same dock access. And if you look at an aerial of the property, if you're looking at Google Earth down, the road that the town is talking about is literally what this grass growing through it. It's like a little dirt path that, so the argument that driving your beach wagon across for access to the dock or the waterfront just doesn't hold water for evaluation on the land where the town put it. And this is, again, just an example of where Vision Appraisal does a paint with a wide brush, but then you have to come in and say, okay, well, this is great for 99% of the properties that are in town, but there are outliers. You know, there are these little camps on little roads, seasonal utilities, seasonal roads, and this is when it's the job of the applicant to show that this is an outlier property, and I believe they've done that here. I think we have to fine tune the number among the board, but I think the applicant has made a strong case that in fact the current valuation is not correct, and it's overvalued.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we have an interesting difference of opinion. I would say we have two that feel there should be some adjustment made
Yes, sir.
based on what we were seeing here. I am having a hard time going against the assessed value that they have, based on the data they have. I really am. But I would entertain some adjustment because of the inconsistencies that we have to base everything on. So anyways, that's my opinion. Like the guy says, we welcome yours, right? So we're gonna have to take a vote of some sort, or have somebody make a motion to vote on what we wanna do. Either we wanna go and deny the appeal, or we want to make some other motion.
I have one quick question for the Harrison side. The statute allows for a 10% variation, is that correct?
Yes,
So basically, the assessment would be wrong 10%.
right. 10% or less is good enough.
Above or below. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what he confirmed.
There's a statute that's interpreted to say 10% or closer is good enough.
Right.
Not exactly what the statute means, but everybody thinks it means that, and that's what everybody does. So we'll pretend that's what it means. That's what everybody does.
Right, thanks.
Well, I'd like to motion to grant the abatement by reason of overvaluation, confirming the applicant's just value of the property determined to be $355, down from $422,300.
Second.
Further discussion? What do you think?
Our time was such a substantial, like, only 30,000 difference for that direct view access. I could entertain a change, and if that's something that we do, somewhere in the middle, if we've got that capability, but I think that's a substantial difference.
Yeah, I think it's, based on the town's argument, that parcel at the end is same as the ones in the back, so I don't think across the board that mass appraisal is working right. And I think that, if one of those 4 on the front, 1 on the market, I'd really, I don't think you're north of 4. And the 2 comps that are condos that the town used in their appraisal, wasn't in the 4s. I don't even know the square footage of it. I don't,
Well, here's where I'm coming from. What am I gonna base this 355,000 on?
Right.
Is this a wild-ass guess? Okay? I mean, I don't know, okay? I mean, if I say, yeah, we vote for 355, I mean, what's the difference? How do I substantiate that, 355?
Then you have the other people along the front of that,
well, I
the
mean,
other 3 properties, or 2.
right,
sounds
it's
like.
just, I think the result is the mass appraisal is not working correctly, and I feel like
All right?
that's why, I mean, and to support the reduction is, the unit on the end in the front.
Number 10.
Is way lower, so it doesn't add up to me, and he's exhibited market data that's below 4,
True.
and so I feel like he's
Okay?
given us the burden of proof, and they haven't shown the consistency in their data.
Good.
That's what I would hang my hat on. And and to Peter's point, these are an anomaly. These are a fine-tuned market which has gone down since a couple of years ago. Everybody's been condoing things, and they were on the rise, and then it's kind of stalled. It's not, for their reevaluation, the data they're looking at is 2 years before, I think 22 to 24. Well, stuff right now is not It's not there.
I don't have the same
Any other comment?
opinion on the values of properties and waterfront properties in general, whether it's a condo or if it's a home on the water. They're continuing to rise substantially, and there's a lot of demand for them, so, especially if it's on the water.
Right, I would argue a desirable one, yes, but some old renovated condo camps that have been made into a condo association is a different animal in the market. And the homeowner's, motivation and use is different when they don't own the land.
Well, they own it in common, okay?
Right.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we want to call for a vote? Do we want to talk some more? What would you like to do?
I'm ready to vote.
Ready to vote? Okay. Do we have the motion specifically written down? You
Well,
were
I already
type-
motioned and
You were
you
typing
supported
away.
it.
The motion is to evaluate, to grant
The,
the applicant, the appealant,
355.
355. And one of you seconded that?
Yeah, I motioned and Peter
Motion.
seconded.
Peter seconded. At 355.
Okay.
All in favor? Show of hands.
Not in favor?
I'm gonna go ahead and, I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with it.
3 to 1.
Because I just think, I don't have any other better answer. 355. To vote.
I do have a question, and maybe this is for you, Jim. Does it need to be 100% or just majority rule? Okay.
If it was 2-2, it would have failed.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, like, what do you,
Fireworks here.
yeah.
I, majority wins.
I thought we were gonna start drinking beers in the living room.
Okay, if you wanna write something on
I
there.
don't know.
Yeah, I need to write it up.
That'd be more.
Thank you, first of all of you,
Thank you, guys.
very much, thank you.
Yeah, we'll be putting something in writing, and we'll send that out. So, yeah. Excellent.
All right,
There's a second item?
yeah, now I have to figure out what all is the second item here. I got more papers than,
Yeah, the packet kind of blends
Yes, it does.
from one to the next.
Yeah, I found that. Say Harrison. When you read Harrison, it's a new item.
let me see, Harrison, here we go. I gotta get rid of this.
I know, yeah, I was gonna be late night, so.
Thank you.
Good. Nice job.
All right, so, we did that.
They have copies in the packets.
Mr. Sullivan, why'd you get away from the architecture work?
It ain't a great racket, I gotta say.
Yeah.
For the hours, I can't say it was worth the squeeze.
Interesting. I have fought the need to use an architect, and since I've used one, I've been like, wow, what an incredible
What is new?
wealth of knowledge there that I had no idea about until I used one.
That's the thing, I think not particularly appreciated, and so,
So, here's, I got an interesting dilemma that would be, I'm gonna have to ask Jim,
working with homeowners is pretty.
You have something tonight?
Yeah. Who do you work with?
just
you
my,
work locally?
my car meter running out at 7:30 over across the street.
You might be able to take a break, like,
If we can take a break, I could go over,
yeah, I say we,
feed that somebody, so I don't tow it away.
yeah,
Because I don't know how long we're gonna be here.
exactly. We've been on for, what, an hour and a half? I think we could take a 15.
65?
Yeah, let me see what the procedure is. And again, thank you
No.
for helping me do this.
Oh, yeah. No, thanks for
You
the
work with Alan Wolf at all?
reminder to do it.
Yeah, sometimes.
Didn't hear him the first time. and we'll kind of begin again, okay? So again, welcome to the meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Assessment Review. This meeting will come to order. Again, this is public proceedings unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session. You have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all of the exhibits that are offered, okay? Please notify the chairman if you're unable to hear or see. And I just ask you to speak as loudly as you can. Sometimes I don't hear very well. The board, again, work is prepared. We have an agenda here in consideration for you. We're going to talk about the address is 400 Carsley Road in Harrison. Any person wishing to address the board may do so in accordance with the following procedures. Order of presentations, the board will initially confirm with the applicant and the assessor and the current assessed value of the property. B, the request abatement amount. And then the board will then open public hearing and ask the applicant to present his or her case, followed by questions by the board members and questions by the assessor. The board will then ask the assessor to present his case, and then followed by questions by board members and questions by the applicant. The board will then allow the member of the public to speak on the agenda item. The board will then close the public hearing and deliberate and make a decision on the tax abatement appeal. Following the decision on the appeal, toward the end of the meeting or at the subsequent meeting shortly thereafter, the board will prepare a written decision that will be mailed to the applicant within 10 days of the vote of the board. Evidence, the board may receive any oral or documentary evidence, but such evidence is restricted to the subject matter of the agenda item. The board shall exclude any irrelevant or immaterial or unduly repetitious evidence. Decorum, citizens shall refrain from interrupting other speakers. This meeting is being electronically recorded, and it is very difficult to hear what is being said when multiple people speak at the same time. Citizens shall avoid personalities and conduct themselves as a civil and courteous manner expected of all meeting participants. Questions, the speaker should address any question through the chair. And again, speakers shall not attempt to engage a debate with each other. Public comments, persons wishing to address the board on the agenda item shall signify their desire to speak by raising their hands when the chair announces that public comment will be considered on such item. After being recognized to speak by the chair, such person will, provide their comments and their first and last names and address, if you would. I don't know that we have anybody. Any questions? If none, we're going to move on to the first agenda. First thing, has all of the deadlines been properly filed? Jim, we're good on that?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so let's start out with the applicant.
There's one other piece. Have you paid taxes based on the new amount?
Oh, yes.
Yes, okay, good.
Good question. Thank you. The
Thank you.
taxes are paid. All right, I think we're ready to go.
We're good to go.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
For your time. This is Dominic, and this is my wife Anita McCauley. We live at 400 Carsley in Harrison. And we are arguing that the value of our house is too high. Harrison was revalued in '24, somewhere around the middle of the year. And we went from a total value land and buildings of 14,800 to 509. That's more than doubled. Our taxes went up 42%. And we're here to argue that that's unreasonable and not supported by comps that we have been given by, actually, we had our realtor, the woman that sold us the house 10 years ago, walk through on the 14th this month, and subsequently walked through the whole home. She had seen it before, she sold it to us. She saw it now currently and sent over the comps that I gave you tonight. Because one of those comps you had already, I believe, and I'll get to that in a moment because that's significant. The rest, I think, are new. The one that you had was on the Harrison report. I don't know if you have the Harrison report.
I read that. Yeah, yep.
Okay.
They give the reasons.
Yeah. So one of the reasons, if you look at,
Is it a new packet that you just sent over, or was the original?
Page 56, bottom right.
56, thanks.
if you look at the second paragraph at the bottom, it says 357 Naples Road is not comparable due to age. Okay, so what I need to show at this point is the tax card.
Yep, yep.
And if you look at the tax card, this I think is in the one you just got today because it's marked up.
Yeah.
It says tax card mistakes and
Yep.
notes. So I have, I believe, eight different discrepancies. The biggest one being number one, and you have the notes on the side.
Yep.
Number one is the house was built in 1850. They have it as 1990. So when they rejected us originally on the Harrison report because of age, we're arguing that's just doesn't make any sense. That house, that comp is 1836. Ours is 1850. But on the tax card, it's 1990. That was one big.
Is there any rationale for 1990? Like, did you do updates, a build?
I wouldn't
anything
have
like that?
known. I spoke to a selectman. He called me back. Oh, I called him. He called me back, and he mentioned this to me. I had no idea. I've never done this before. I don't know
Yep.
what a tax card is, but I looked at this, and I don't know how that
Yeah,
got.
okay.
We're one of the first farms in Harrison. This house.
Nice, nice.
So that's, and then there's other things like, well, there's a lot of mistakes. They have clapboard, it's vinyl. They have a full basement. There's actually what you might call a full basement and a crawl space. I don't get this. It says wet basement and it's dry as circle. I don't understand what that means. It's a wet basement. It's always wet. Of 5 bedrooms. They have 5 bedrooms. There's only 3. Attic, none. I don't know I don't get that. There is an attic. You could maybe, it's a barn attached, so maybe they're calling that not an attic. And then condition number 7. This is important too. They have it circled as average, which I think is very important when you look at the choices being very good, excellent. An average 1850 farmhouse. Yes, it's been cleaned up. Yes, we painted. We did some exterior work, but the value went overnight. It doubled. We just don't think it's supported. So then we have a bunch of comps you can look at. And that's in the new packet. And you see,
I do have a question about the 3 bedrooms versus 5. There was a tax card I saw in the packet that we were provided that shows 3 bedrooms, a master bedroom, they call it, and an office. Is that inaccurate, or?
what the previous owners used that as the office, I'm calling a bedroom.
Okay.
Actually, we use it as a bedroom. There's no way there's 5 bedrooms.
Okay.
In fact,
Unless they call it the office.
that we are.
I mean, our new office.
But there's only 3 bedrooms, because there's another, I think it was a tax card that was provided that showed,
Yeah, no one actually says 5 bedrooms.
it's actually, it's this,
Oh, on the, that's the.
Page 53.
The realty,
We
Page-
did see something with 4 bedrooms.
that's the realty,
yeah, page 53 shows
yeah.
3 bedrooms, a master bedroom, and an office.
So I would challenge that. to that.
You don't think that's accurate? That's definitely 3, okay. All right.
Um, Okay, yeah, so then, I guess this is kind of a repeat of the tax card, it's the valuation report, and the same mistakes are on it, but because it's probably a copy.
Yeah.
Point being, it was revalued, no one looked inside the house, we never saw anyone on the property. I spoke to a woman that worked for Parker, and she told me they just drive by and look at the style of the house, and they have an equation. And that's all about it. In fact, I had to argue that. If you look at the tax card again, if you look at the plan, I think it's this room here, I had to get that taken off the tax card because it's not heated and it's not a cross code. That's where it was. She had no idea what it was. She had no idea, what she was getting for her square footage.
So this is a room. It's noted, there's a barn all the way to the left.
Yep, it's the one to the right of it.
So that middle, well, there's 2 middles, but the one that has the room, there's like a,
It looks like 250 circled there.
yeah, 250 circled.
That's,
And the house, the actual house is then to the right of that?
yeah, this is a porch,
Okay.
and the house is here and here.
Yep.
This is crawl space. Full basement, maybe 6 feet at most. In reality, in the original construction, the house was this.
So what would you think
The
your,
rest was all barn.
what do you think your square footage is?
It's reported at 875 or something. I have no reason to discount that.
But your MLS flyer shows 2932.
Which one?
The MLS flyer?
They must be coming, the summer kitchen and
Be a barn too, everything.
And I just asked because if you enlisted the help of your real estate friend, it's a very, probably the most important aspect to this valuation, comparing it to others, because in these old handmade assessment cards, there's always errors, and I mean, unless you let them in, they're not gonna know the square footage of that room and whatnot, so
Okay.
there's a good starting point. I'm just trying to nail down what you think the square footage of your house is, and the comps that were provided are much smaller than 2932, so I'm just trying to grasp that, and
We used to
kinda-
have an estimate, what was it, like 14 or something
I don't know how they
like that? 15,
Yeah.
I'm kind of just going by this.
And the townhouse is what, 875 square feet?
Town has it at 875?
I mean, that's what it says.
Yeah, no,
1 3/4 story.
it's 1 3/4.
So we got
It's 875 times 1.75.
Times
Right.
1.7.
times 1.75.
Let's do that math.
Plus the 416, plus the 250.
Okay,
875 times 1.
all right. Well, we can clarify that as we go here. That's important.
We get 22.
Okay,
We get
continue.
2,200 on the property card.
2,200?
Where is that?
That's the total. You got.
Okay.
You got a 25 by 35.
That's helpful.
Main house, storing 3/4.
But you're taxing them based on 875 or 2,200?
With
The
taxing
town
them for
ta-
all of it.
For
20
2,200.
20.
Just
But where
different
is it-
schedules for a one-story frame, story and a
Correct.
half, story.
Totally,
and three-quarter,
totally,
Right,
two-story.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
But how does he know what his square footage is in your records, is what I want to know. How does the homeowner know?
All he has to do is ask.
But it should be on.
Is it right here?
Should be on the tax.
On the schedule?
Should be on the tax card,
You
for
add
sure.
these all up? Is that what you were just doing?
So you're saying barn's out.
Barns out.
So you got the 875 base, so that'd be the times 1.75 in the front. Then the 416 is one story.
1.75.
And then,
That's
yep,
what his
So you got 875, 416, and then behind that is the 250, first floor?
The 250 should not be counted.
That's not heated. So you got 875 times 1.75, plus 416, plus what? Barn is not, porch, no.
250,
The 250 is not heated, he's saying.
still living space.
If it's not heated, it doesn't count.
No.
So
No, I was,
It has to be priced.
your,
I wouldn't consider
And
it
it's priced-
GLA.
And it's priced out differently.
your.
Right, there's
Just like a
value.
porch, just like a deck, just like a garage, just like
Your
anything.
company told me that that didn't count.
That's not true.
Well, you're calling me a liar?
Wait a
I'm
minute.
just saying that that's not
Let me stop it right here, okay? Well, I'm gonna hold your comment, and I'm gonna just stick with you for right now to make your presentation, and then we're gonna go over and let him
Absolutely.
say what he has to say. So you continue.
So if you look at the comps from today that you just received, and you add, what I did, and I don't know, it's all new to me.
It's okay.
But I added up the 4 comps of homes in the area. Then we got 2 online instant things, instant values. One from Zillow, one from this place called Laughlin Wolfington. They advertise a lot.
What's the other one?
Laughlin Wolfington. And all I did was add all them up, take an average. Didn't know what else it is. And I get 340, 419. That's it.
What was that number again?
340, 419.
Thank you.
And I will reiterate that I did not make up the fact that I spoke to a woman from the valuation company, and since no one came in the house, I mentioned that this area, the 250 square foot, as per this map or plan, is not heated. We don't use it in the winter, can't. It's basically storage, and it is over a crawl space. The floor is like this. It's not, it's not living space at all. It, at most, is a summer kitchen. Access to the deck behind. But, then one more thing I want to mention, on the land value, they have us, of course, the land went from, I think the land doubled.
About 200%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The land more than doubled. Yeah. Well, about doubled. 93 to 184. And then something new to me was a mountain view. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I can see some of the top of the mountain. I have no idea what equation, multiplier, or whatever is used to get, to basically double that land value. That's, I guess that's my answer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board to Dominic? Peter, any questions at this time?
Yeah, I had a question. When you had a meeting with the assessor, did they offer any abatement whatsoever based on your information, or was it just no?
It was just no.
Did they see the comps that you provided, that your realtor provided? They're showing square footage range from about just under 1,800 square feet to almost 4,000 square feet. And did they see those? Were those provided to the town assessor?
No.
But they did discount one of the costs you provided because of build date in the 1800s, and they said it wasn't comparable. They had you at 1990. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
I guess, so, the mountain view piece, do any of these properties have mountain view? Do you know?
This one does.
I don't know if you drove by them just to see whether or not.
We know all the houses
Yeah.
on Summit Hill. would
Su-
have-
Summit Hill does, yeah. I think that's maybe the only one. So, 143 Summit Hill, probably the only one.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't know.
All right. Your turn, sir.
Good evening. My name is Robert Chingers from Parker Appraisal Company. I'm playing the assessing agent for the little town of Harrison this evening. And I want to put into the record that Dominic has refused entry into the house and refused to talk to me tonight to make any adjustments that I could be making, just for the record. And as far as the view lots go, anyone in town that has a view of Mount Washington and Shawnee Peak or Pleasant Mountain now has a 200% over the $80,000 base lot that is used universally throughout the town on a paved road. So all the properties that I have that were his comps at the time, none of them had a view of any kind.
Okay.
So that substantiates the reason for the 80,000 versus 160. That's the difference in the land value. As far as the building value goes, that 2004, the 250 and the deck on the back, those were both put on in 2004. This 1990 is a mistake. It's actually 1940, which would be the effective age of the house for all the remodeling, reconditioning, and just better than an 1850 house. So that's all in the depreciation. That's all based on the condition, desirability, usefulness of the house. Whether it has 3 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, doesn't make a whole lot of difference if we put it into the computer. It's not gonna make any difference at all. I've had houses this big with 1 bedroom in it. But again, that's not any of the criteria that would make any difference whatsoever on this piece of property.
But does
And
the,
as far as-
I'm sorry to interrupt, but does the 1990, is that in your system, and does that have an influence on what might have occurred here?
It would, but it all based on the condition, desirability, and usefulness. So the actual age is a factor,
Yeah.
but the real factor is the condition of the property, the desirability of the property, and the usefulness. The CDU, all of it has an effect on the property, not just the age. The age is wrong, it'll make a difference. Absolutely. As far as vinyl and clapboards, not gonna make any difference in the overall value. Basement sections, the 25 by 35 is a full basement. The next piece over is on a foundation, and the next piece over that he's calling unheated, we've got it on piers. We don't have it on a foundation, but it has a foundation, which would add more value to that section of the property. And basically the base lot. The comp that he used originally on Naples Road, that sold for $282,500. It's not a real comparable property. It is in age, but it isn't in condition. It has no view of anything, and this is a divorce. So the guy unloaded this house, headed off to Costa Rica. It's not a good arm's length transaction,
Okay,
and it's not a comp. It's a sale, but it's not comparable. It's not a good arm's length transaction that should be utilized.
What did you say about the condition of that sale?
Which one, the sale?
Yeah, Naples
It's
Road?
deplorable. He's ripped and torn the whole place apart and never put it back together again.
and you say pretty much unloaded that,
It was a
Wait, no.
divorce.
not an arm's length deal in your opinion, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And the other comp that he used on 381 Maple Ridge Road, that definitely does not have a view. That's gonna make a difference there. The building is 416.6 against his 350. I don't know if that's comparable or not, but we've got
Say-
more,
say
we've
that
got
last
more,
se-
we've got more money on that house than we do on his.
What did you say about, were you talking about 44 Carsley?
No, I'm talking about 381 Maple Ridge.
381 Maple Ridge.
That was one with the view?
Yeah.
No, no view.
You're saying it doesn't have a view?
Does not have a view.
Is that a sale or a just assessment
That's-
review,
no, that's-
assessment comp?
That's their comp, not mine.
Right.
That's what they provided to the town.
I'm just trying to find the MLS flyer for it.
Just had it. Certificate.
I don't have that on the sale. Was that in today's packet?
That was in the original packet.
That had to be the original packet.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Lots of comments.
That's seven, and I also have 744 Maple Ridge Road as a comp. It's 353 on the building, which is pretty comparable to his. The only difference being the 80,000 for the lot versus the 160,000 on his.
Which was that address?
That is 744 Maple Ridge.
That's a lot though, right? Land?
It's basically just the land. There's no
Yeah.
views. So that's why the difference,
Yep.
a big difference in the total valuation.
Yep. So those are the original appeal had
Oh.
these other properties. It had, he broke it out by, this is that one that's divorce. 381 is a 50-acre property built in 1830. It has a house on it, 1836.
Mm-hmm.
And then then he was comparing the land, but they're Maple Ridge, which I believe is very close proximity to these, but they're larger. He was making the comparison between 5 acres and these others.
There's a lot of properties on Maple Ridge, which is the road he borders. Carsley Road hits into Maple Ridge.
Yeah.
Maple Ridge itself has a lot of nice views on it, but none of the ones that they've used as comps have the view. So after reviewing the entire town, setting values, we've used as much as 300% for some lots that have a view of the lake, mountains, and that whole, you've got what is it? I can't remember the name of this. The circle, right downtown, sat there vacant forever.
Yeah.
Then this past year, you got a view of Crystal Lake, Long Lake, Mount Washington and Pleasant, and they're paying, it's $240,000 for their lot developed. They're paying about $129,000, $130,000 for undeveloped lots up there. So, you know, view is everything, and it's definitely reflected in the market value that people will pay all over town. 99% of the town's on a paved road with an $80,000 lot. And then we use I think we use a $70,000 lot for a dirt road with no views. But if you've got a nice view and you're on a dirt road, you're still gonna get nicked for that $160,000 base lot.
Well, I understand, and I know the market in general, and the views are very valuable.
You guys sell them. You advertise them.
It's, yeah, some days I don't
We have to
I
reflect
don't
that value
understand.
into everybody else's.
Yeah, but it is a crazy market, to
It's
say the
nuts.
least. Yes, I'm sorry.
I guess on the land portion, the change that occurred is the view. I think that's one of the major pieces. It went from
That's-
100% to 200% valuation for
Correct.
that. So we understand, we provide that rationale. But I guess on the building portion,
Uh-huh.
I think I struggle with that a little bit too, because if it goes from 213 valuation to 509, the vast majority of that seems to be coming from the building, and an adjustment due to the building. What am I missing there? 'Cause the buil-
2006 was the last time the town was revalued. That's
Okay.
what 2003 values reflected. Yeah. Buildings went up, everything went up. Doubled, tripled, quadrupled.
Yep.
Good thing this is down on the lake at $800,000 for your first 100-foot.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
absolutely nuts. $1.2 million for 200-foot lot on the lake.
Wow.
And it's even worse. I'm working in Kiesel Lake now. Insane.
I like Keys Lake, but
It's gorgeous.
I-
But
I-
anyway,
anyways,
I guess there's some mistakes that need to be fixed.
yeah,
But as far as a 10% deviation for every $500,000 house, you gotta be somewhere between $450 and $550 to have a legal assessment. I think we have a very legal assessment.
applicants proposing a reduction of
150.
158.4, which would bring the total assessed value from an amount of
350, 600.
say that again?
I think it's, yeah, 350, 600.
No,
350,600.
looking for 148, I think. Isn't that what the
Hold
application
on,
says?
I've just got so many pieces of paper in front of me right now. Here it is.
So the application says
Yeah.
abatement requested valuation amount, so it's valued at 509 minus their request.
350.
Their opinion value is 350, 600.
That's their opinion of value. Yep.
Yeah, which is just responding to what you're asking.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Looking at the comps provided, they are, you know, certainly comparable. The age, I'm not so excited about for the time of sale. You know, I have to agree with the town assessor that that's not a good sale because it was distressed and the conditions say it needed cosmetic updating throughout. But looking at, you know, 143 Summit Hill, 3,800 square feet, you know, 350,000 seems like the ballpark. You know, Naples Road, Harrison, you know, has view, one of them says has views of the mountains. Let me find, I'm gonna get back to it. Hold on. Anyways, I And also to the applicant, you know, Zillow is not a good source, you know, at all, really, to even consider. But you have provided MLS sales that put you in a different realm, in my opinion. I do think north of 5 is a huge reach. And, I understand the town assessor's standpoint. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and those, you know, Harrison is a gorgeous, you know, great, you know, rolling hill, quiet area with lake access and mountain access, and more people are catching on to it, but, yeah, 143 Summit Hill says 3.5 acres, beautiful views of Mount Washington. You know, 1820s farmhouse, 3,800 square feet, you know, the amenities, 10-person sauna, ADU, you know, charming clawfoot tub, 350, 2023, you know,
What's it assessed at?
I don't know, but I'm really going on market value as the value
You gotta go
judgment.
with assessed value, equity and assessment. What is that property assessed for? How similar type properties are being valued?
I'm not so sure I do have to go based on the town assessed value.
We really need to look at
Market
market
value.
value.
Market value.
You're looking at assessed fair market value. If you can't establish the market value of a piece of property, then equity and assessment will prevail
Yeah,
anywhere,
That's
in
not right.
any court proceeding.
right,
So
Right.
you have to prove inequity in comparison to similar type properties.
right.
Right.
It's
So-
doing, anti-discrimination appeal, not number valuation appeal, that's not correct.
Right, that's what I was told differently. I agree, yeah, I'm not, in my opinion, town assessment cards usually, have a lot of errors in them because of the mass appraisal method. And I've spent years looking at
Yes,
10 a day, analyzing them, but, however, I do feel the applicant's asking for too much. You know, looking at a good comp at 350, you know, how much does the market increase in a couple of years? You know, I don't know, 14, what's the year?
20 to 25%.
20 to 25%.
Easy.
Easy. It's slowed, though.
Not a lot,
Not much.
not as much as you might think.
Right. I'm sitting on houses, man, they're not moving. So,
But let me add this, and I know that you mentioned that you also agree there's some errors here, and it wasn't precise, and that you're probably open to some negotiations here.
Absolutely.
To try to figure
I wanted
out-
to do it tonight.
Yeah, what could be fair, okay? So,
Can I answer that?
go ahead.
If you wanted to negotiate tonight, I'm all for negotiation.
Yeah.
But back there, I mean, it has to be official, doesn't it? I don't know what he meant.
well, we're here now, so.
We're here now.
I don't think you have the option
It should be at
to
the
go
table.
back. I think we're at the board, here,
That's the intent
discretion of
of
the
this
board
meeting.
at the moment.
Absolutely. yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sorry.
I mean,
You know,
I-
it's not my
I-
turn, but Bob, Mr. Ingres makes it sound like I didn't want a deal. It's like, I want 100 and whatever I'm asking for. I'm not. I
Okay.
mean, this, to me, was an evolving process. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I'm spitballing it, but I mean, kind of am, based
Yeah.
on comps. And if we can get a evaluation, or whatever you want to call it, of a smaller amount, I'm fine.
Yeah. The town assessor talked about effective age due to some, you know, additions on in 1940. Was there more stuff put on or anything?
I have no idea.
Okay,
I don't know where 1940 even comes from.
okay. So it's all original framing, all original subfloor, all original roof trusses?
The barn,
Floor
Cumberland
trusses,
still
floor
have bark
joists.
on 'em.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, I'm not even, depending on the condition of those old features, some buyer might want all those if they're in good condition versus updated vinyl siding. So
Yeah.
I was just curious if that was the case.
Floors are crooked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice house, don't get me wrong, we love it.
Yeah.
It's just not this old house, quality.
$500,000 house.
And the fact that no one walked through it.
Well,
Made an attempt Friday.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
called him and said, can I come look?
Friday. I will
Whatever.
say this,
There are different-
there's different back to the point of the heated space, there's different methods there's different standards of calculating GLA, and banks and lenders do not, Appraisal Institute does not use unheated spaces, low gross living area.
We still have to put a value on that
Right.
space,
You
which we
could
do.
Put some sort of value, yes.
absolutely.
But not considered square footage.
No.
I think it's
You have
about.
to call it what
right.
it is, and then you have a set of schedules you
Right,
utilize.
schedule, different
You break
schedule.
it down into each component
Right.
part, and you put a value on it.
Yep.
And the value that was placed on the part that you're talking about, if you want to know, is the 250. That's valued at $23,600.
Okay. I'd say he's just shy of 1950 square feet, based on the data I have, but I don't.
So I think one of the points we're gonna make, at least I'm gonna make, in whatever recommendation that we do, that the town records be corrected, okay?
Yeah, you get.
There's
Yeah, if I'm allowed into the house, I
Yeah,
can
that's
make
out of
the
our, that's out of our
corrections.
control.
That's it. Yeah.
Good.
Whenever he allows me to come through the house, make the corrections, then I'll make those corrections.
I'll address that in a minute.
And I just think that we have so many errors there that, we need to talk through that in how we negotiate with what is a fair assessment tonight. I mean, and whether the town eventually ever changes anything or not, we need to have a basis for what we're going to decide. And I think some of that is the errors that's in the records.
Easily fixed. You plug it into the computer, it'll spit out a new number. Make
Well-
all the corrections.
I don't have that computer,
Either.
so
What?
we're gonna try to solve this without that, I guess, if we can.
I would, go
Is
ahead.
this something that we can table and let them try to come up with a number or, a fair, equitable position? Is it something we should table and let them try to work it out, or do we just, make a motion at some point and come up with a value?
Well, I was going to ask that question, Peter, of each party. We already kind of got an idea from the applicant originally, and I think you've had time to think about it. We also had, I think, some consideration from the town, the assessment. And I just wanted to hear maybe what you might suggest would be a number that you'd have in mind that might be a little bit better. What do you think?
Without having the computer to make all these little changes, I
Okay.
probably can't tell you. I can give you a ballpark, maybe.
Well, anything you could do might help us. We can take if you want to take a few minutes,
Let
we
me
can.
take a shot at it here.
Okay. Can we have like a little 5-minute recess or a couple minutes?
5 minutes, sure.
Take a little recess.
Have
5
at
minutes?
it.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I think,
Where I would make,
You want to give?
the
time, or you
the only
wanna
place
keep
that there's
going?
gonna be a whole lot of adjustments here
Yeah.
is going to be in the depreciation.
right.
Okay? That's it in a nutshell. And that's all based on the age, condition, and desirability.
Right.
Okay? Everything else is correct on here as far as making a difference in the value, the number of bedrooms. You've got one piece of paper here that says there's 4, that residential customer synopsis. That says there's 8 rooms, 4 bedrooms. You've got another piece of paper, I don't know what the hell's in there. I'm guessing there's probably 4 bedrooms instead of
I'm
5.
going by square foot farmhouse on a
Oh.
lot,
Yep.
you know?
I just can't believe it.
Antique New Englander, anything like that. But I think that, Jim, are we allowed to use data, MLS data?
No.
Are we allowed to look at MLS data?
It can help you, but it can't guide you.
Okay. Well, if the definition of value is the market value, we're not allowed to use that to come up with some sort of agreement, that seems tougher than reasonable, tougher than, you know. I feel like we should,
Today's MLS data is different from when the assessment was put on April 1st, 2024.
right,
Good
right.
point.
Has been
Yeah,
a
that's a good
major
point.
difference, Gene.
So these comps are all from the assessment period?
Yes.
Okay, so
It should be
I think you need to
all
look at what's here.
2024.
Yeah.
23, comp data from 23 represented in 24 is sufficient.
Yep. 22
So
sales,
that's
23
on
sales, and
currently
24 sales.
44, Carlsley Road, number 44 Carlsley, that was just 2,500 square feet, 2.5 bathrooms,
Yeah.
built in 1890, 2 fireplaces. I looked at the interior photos on that, and it's a superior home, no
Peter?
offense to the applicant, but superior home
Hey,
interior.
Peter,
Yeah.
Nita,
hold on 1 second, no one else can see that, so that's
Okay.
testimony that can't be brought into.
But it's a comp, I'll leave it at this, Jim, it's a comp that the applicant provided, and I'm interested to hear what the assessment comment can be on that.
Which one is it?
What was the?
That was-
400,
44 Carsley?
That's correct.
New stuff, 44 Castley.
That's over
Huh?
385.
comp range is 282 to 385. I think there's a comp.
And this one here is,
44 Castley?
Yeah.
Correct.
385, this one.
You may not have,
I think anything north of 425.
That's a-
That was in tonight's variable sales pitch.
That,
Hmm.
I do.
that's not a sale?
So,
Yes, it is.
Do you
When?
have this packet?
he doesn't.
Do you have an extra?
Yes,
co-
he has a
This is
package.
mine, but.
This is in the packet you gave us today.
Yeah,
Yes.
And,
44 Carsley? Yeah,
Yeah.
That's about midway through the pack.
yeah, about halfway through.
What's the assessed value?
I'm using it as a comparable sale from market value, which will translate into assessed value.
Not necessarily. Sale price is a sale price. An assessed value is an assessed value.
This looks like an arm's length transaction. I
It-
understand that you had a concern with one that was a divorce sale, but this is the applicant provided comparable sales produced by their real estate agent.
This
So
ju-
I'm gonna take it at face value, it's an arm's length transaction, and I'm looking for your comment.
he wants to know what the town card says for the town's assessed value. Do you know, can you pull that up? What's it under, O'Donnell Associates website?
No, it'll be under Trio.
Trio?
But
Google,
we have a sale on the same road
Right.
with more square footage, more bathrooms that closed just over a year ago, in December of '23. So just outside, you could even use it almost as a comparable today, for $385. And I understand there's a view component there, but even so, that only puts you in the 4. So I'm having trouble with the 5 plus assessment.
Yep.
I'm having trouble anything north of 425. But then, you know, Jim makes a good point, using the data at hand of the time of the assessment, these comps from 2023, there's 4 comps ranging from 282 to 385.
Yeah,
You know?
agreed.
So you know, I feel like, I am curious to see, I think, you know, to see what the town card says for this property, but just, you know,
Well-
see if the town even has it as a sale, you know, I don't know.
Here's my opinion. I don't really care what the assessed value is. It doesn't really equate to market value, all right? Market value is what I'm trying to figure out here. And then the town can, base their mill rates and their assessments on whatever.
Right.
But the market value is critically important, I think. I mean, every time I go to the towns and look at assessed value, it's usually something different and usually less.
Yep.
Sometimes not by a lot, but something different than the market value. No, I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so if you're gonna use it as a comp, you have to comp it out against the assessed value also.
You may, we don't.
You do, I don't.
So here, I'm gonna make a motion.
But wait a minute, if, you don't know that that's a good arm's length transaction. You don't always know everything about a particular piece of property.
Absolutely.
Okay?
I'll agree with
So
you.
you've got to look at the assessed value for equity and assessment. If you want to compare apples to apples, houses to houses, you better be considering what the property is assessed for. Because we don't know all the special circumstances. I know nothing about that property. I know nothing about what it sold for, why it sold, who it sold to. I don't know anything about it. All it is a sale that you're pulling off of a computer.
I understand
I
where you're
agree.
coming from.
But luckily
because
we
the
afford-
assess-
we
We
have-
give you that information.
We have four
I
to
see.
go by. So the average of those four comps provided is 336,650, which is below what the applicant is requesting for an abatement. So the applicant is requesting abatement reduction of 100 and, why do I keep losing this sheet?
They're asking for an abatement of $350,000.
No, 158,4. Down to-
158,400.
Down to 350, which is above the mean. So I would like to motion to grant the applicant's abatement reduction of 158,400.
I'll second that. I just want to remind everyone that the Harrison Assessing Department had the opportunity to work with the homeowners previously.
Yeah, yes. They said they didn't want to do that.
Correct, statute allows it, they didn't do it.
We have a second. Comments? And further discussion? No?
I don't have anything further to say. I agree.
Nothing further?
I motioned.
I mean, you're happy? No other comments?
I think it's reasonable. I think it's more than reasonable.
All right. We'll call a vote, if you're all happy with that. All in favor of the applicant reduction of the 158.4? Unanimous. Done.
Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't give them the opportunity to, but you got what you wanted.
I didn't hear any complaints over there.
I'm not gonna complain. I have some points, but this is fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll send you the, in writing within 10 days.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking your time tonight.
I'd say thank you, meeting adjourned, and thank you very much also for your time.
Thank you.
We have another
Make a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn?
Granted.
Second?
Yeah, all in favor? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. We'll see you in person the next time.
I will.
You did a great job. Thank you very much.